So, I guess if you want to describe what is idiot compassion, it's when you are being compassionate, you feel, because it's involving the ego. So I am compassionate, I've seen your suffering, and I want to remove your suffering, but I'm egotistically trying to remove your suffering. And so when the ego is involved, ego means lacking in wisdom, ignorance. So it's believing the self exists, the other exists, and the suffering exists as something inherent, not something created, but something inherent. So the whole situation is pervaded by ignorance. And so then the response is an ignorant response, believing in the suffering, believing in the self. I can do something about the suffering. So that's what we call idiot compassion, in the sense of not understanding the situation, not understanding the person, not understanding oneself, not understanding the right action, the right time. So when to do it, how to do it. This requires more thought than just, I can't stand your suffering, I must do something about it. Like I said before, some people have to be left alone. Idiot compassion is giving money to an addict, as an example. You give money to an addict, what are they going to do with it? Of course they're going to use it for the substance of their addiction. So that's idiot compassion. And people often ask me, so how to help others who are poor? How to help with compassion without doing harm? How to help? And I usually say to them, when we're talking about India, Nepal, I say find a good organization. Give to the organization, don't give to the individual. Because with the individual, you have to do the research on the individual to find out whether you're being wisely compassionate or idiot compassion, if you're going to help them. Whereas the organization makes it their business. This is what they do. They help addicts. They help poor people. So they know what they're doing. Whereas as individuals, we don't necessarily know who we're helping. And so your compassionate can be well motivated, but can still harm the other person. So I think if you want to benefit others, the best way is to look for an organization. But if it's with friends, it requires wisdom and compassion, not just compassion. Compassion is get off the cushion and do something for others. Wisdom is, hold on. Is it the right time? Is it the right person? What are you going to do? Do you know what you're doing? You say, well, I'm not really sure. Then stop. Don't do anything. Think about the possibilities. Meditate on it. Think what you could do. But don't just immediately move to do something and then make a whole problem, and then afterwards you think, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I should have had more skill. I should have been wiser. In the beginning, if we haven't helped others, in the beginning when we want to help others, we don't necessarily think about wisely helping others. We just think about helping others, right? But in Buddhism, it makes it very clear, have the two sides, have a balance between the movement and the thinking process, the wisdom, but then Buddhism goes beyond the thinking process in the sense of empty. The self, does it really exist? It exists conventionally, but not ultimately. The other, does it really exist? Conventionally, but not ultimately. The suffering, Does it exist? Yes, conventionally, but in relation to causes and conditions. So all these things coming together, producing an appearance of suffering. But why? From karma, from delusion. These different parts come together. So which part is the suffering? And then which part of you is suffering? Which part of me will alleviate your suffering? So, which part? So I'm going to give you some money. So it's just the hand? If you just cut the hand off, is it that part? No, then I need the arm. So then the arm needs the body. So is it just the body giving? Not just the body. So it needs the movement. Where does the movement come from? The mind. So then you start to put together all these pieces, and you think, so all of those pieces produces the person who wants to help others. But which piece is it? It's many pieces, but not one piece. It's not just the mind. It's not just the body. It's not just the money. It's many parts, and in that way you can separate the parts and say, so where is generosity? Can I find it in all these parts? In the hand, in the arm, in the brain? Where can I find it? Can't find it. And yet it exists. It's a method to stop you getting egotistical. Look at Daniel. He's nearly a saint. You know? We can think like this. Look at me. I'm nearly a saint because I'm helping others. What would that do to the helping others? It would intervene. It would create a problem, a delusion between you and the other. So we have to have a way of benefiting others without the delusion. One of the delusions is, I am helping you. That's one of the delusions, and it's the fundamental delusion. It's very fundamental. It's the basis of all the delusions. I'm helping you. Yeah? So that's where you need to investigate. When you're talking about the idiot compassion, that's where you need to investigate. The idiot is the ego, not you, the ego that comes up and says, I must help you. You know? Then you think, so where's that I? Where's that other? Where's that action? Does it exist? It makes it disappear into smoke. Still, there's me, you, and action. But take away the ego of the action, the self of the action. Just, you move because it's the right thing to do. Replace I with compassion and love. Right? There's no need for I am helping you, just helping. Right? I love you, just love. You see how we put the I in there, and then that I is attaching to itself. So when I love you, I want something back. This is an investment. You know, I'm putting $10 in, I want $20 back. Yeah? It's an investment. So the I is making an investment. Remove the I, just have love with no investment. Just you give out without wanting something back. Because you know about the boomerangs. The secret is the boomerangs. So you've got your $10 boomerangs, and they're all coming back in the form of flowers. You know, because that's the way it works, right? But if we don't know that, we're giving and then we're saying, okay, when's it coming back? When's it coming back? That's the I. What? When's it coming back? When's it coming back? It's been a week. Right? So the idiot is not you, it's the ego. You don't experience the ego all the time. It's just in times the ego appears. I. When it appears, stop. Don't do anything. First, subdue the ego. Not suppress, but to subdue. Apply the opposite, wisdom. It really helps when you read any book of spirituality in the time when you have ego, because ego is based on ignorance, on a delusion. So when you read wise words or you hear wise words, at the time you're egotistical, the ego is automatically softer and removed. But usually with the ego, we assent and agree to the ego and we increase the ego, usually. And others do it too. You know? So they're building the ego, you're building the ego, but what you need is wisdom to remove the ego. When the ego's removed, what do you have? Space. Space for others. Right? But up until now, we've only had enough space for myself. And maybe begrudgingly, 1 or 2 others, or 3 or 15 or 20. But the space is small. But if we're talking about immeasurable, inconceivable, limitless, countless, we need a huge space. And the mind has that space. But we keep limiting it. We keep bringing it back to ego, me, I. What about my hurt, my pain, my suffering, my problems? It comes back to that. Clear?